To my fellow residents of the town of Alany, I've been videotaping meetings since January of 1992. My only motive is a firm belief that an informed electorate will make an informed decision at election time that will ultimately benefit us all. If you share my belief and would like to donate blank videotapes to help with my expenses, please call me at 598-5120. All videotapes of the Town of Alany board meetings are available to rent free of charge to the public at Video World. Today is October 28th. Tonight is a special meeting for the Town of Alany. County's coming in to talk about redistricting the Town of Alany in Oswego County. Thank you. My name is Terry Reynolds, and have a good evening.
So I called him about 7:30, but I called him on his phone and he was on another Okay.
Okay, it's 7:05. I'd like to thank everybody who's arrived for this important meeting on redistricting and turn it over. I'd like to introduce first of all Frank Church, Chairman of the General Government Committee, Dick Tierney, our Deputy County Administrator, and Jan Farr, Attorney with Hiscock and Barkley, who helped draw up the plan. Gentlemen, you're on.
I would like to, on behalf of the Government Committee, thank Legislator Buck for setting up this meeting for us and all of you for coming. I just wish we had a lot bigger crowd, but this is pretty standard.
Thanks, Frank. The way we've been conducting this, what I'd like to do is just give you a little bit of background on this whole issue and how it's evolved, and then I'll let Jan get into some of the technical legal aspects of the case itself. We'll review the whole process, and then obviously we'll be glad to answer any questions that you have when we're all done. What we're talking about is proposal number 4 that'll be on the ballot Tuesday, which states, shall Oswego County Local Law number 1 of 1993, reducing the number of legislators from 36 to 25, be approved. To give you a little historical background on this whole process, county government was a board of supervisors up to 1971. That board of supervisors consisted of one supervisor from each town and one from each city ward, and each supervisor had one vote. So your own town supervisor would also be your legislator, and that's the way it worked up until 1971. In 1971, the Oswego County Legislature was created as a result of a lawsuit, and the way the legislature was formulated at that time is that one legislator from each town and each city ward. They were not necessarily your town supervisor. Each legislator was given a weighted vote according to the population in their town. In the town of Alany, you presently have a population of 5,676, which means that any issue that comes before the county legislature, your legislator is given 56.76 votes. Okay? The town of Hastings has a population of 8,113. Therefore, that individual, when an issue comes up to vote, has 81.13 votes. And it's pretty basically that's the way the situation works, and has worked.
That's the right way.
Yes. On April 26th of '93, a number of individuals, I believe most of them are from the city of Oswego, but that doesn't really matter, sued the county and declared that the weighting voting system that I just described was unconstitutional under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. At that point in time, the legislature decided to retain outside counsel, of whom Mr. Farr is a member, and outside counsel along with our own county attorney reviewed the suit and decided to settle the suit by stipulated order. And I guess maybe at this point I'll let Mr. Farr, who was involved in that process, go through it.
Okay, Jack. Ladies and gentlemen, what happened basically, as he indicated, is we were called in to review the law that has existed, and the law as it has progressed over the years. Back in 1971, that first lawsuit was decided by Judge Hudson. At the time, he said, well, I'm going to allow weighted voting as a temporary measure. That temporary measure lasted a long time. Okay.
Not my strong suit.
All right. Well, we're getting... The temporary measure lasted 22 years. But what happened in the interim, and recently, there was a case decided in New York City, and there was a case decided on Long Island relative to weighted voting. And in both those instances, the district court, federal courts, which this case was in, turned down the weighted voting system. So we were asked to analyze the situation and recommend to the legislature what course they should take. Essentially, what we told them, and rendering an opinion to them, was that any lawsuit can be defended, of course. This could have been defended, but we thought that the end result would be down the road, if you went through all the appeal processes, which one normally would do, the chances of success are fairly slim. Also, there was the factor of the cost of running through the process. And in a lawsuit of this nature, should you lose, the attorneys for the plaintiffs, the people that are bringing the lawsuit, collect fees from the defendant, which was the county. In other words, you would not only have to pay for your own lawyers, you'd have to pay for the other side's lawyers. That's how these lawsuits have occurred. That's what happened in the city of Oswego, essentially. So we had recommended that the lawsuit not be fought and that some sort of settlement be arranged. Meeting with the government, the General Government Committee, we discussed what their concerns were and came back with, we met with the plaintiff's attorneys and came up with the following settlement. First, it says legislature to adopt a reapportionment plan to be placed on November 1993 ballot. Now, when it says effective for the November 1995 election, that means that the people that are running this year in legislative districts will run in those districts, and they will be in those districts, so whoever wins, for 2 years. This plan, or a plan, if it takes effect, will not take effect essentially until the 1st of January 1996. That was one of the concerns that the General Government Committee had, that those people who were out there who go to the public and ask for their votes not be required to run 3 years in a row. There's an expense involved in that, a lot of effort, and they felt that that would be better if we could work something that would give us some time to, if in case the plan did not succeed the first time. Well, if it doesn't succeed the first time, a new plan has to be proposed and voted on and placed on the ballot. That would be by a special election by next April, 94. If in turn that's rejected, another plan must be adopted and placed on the ballot for a year from now. And if that fails, we get into a system where the court appoints a special master. That's a court-appointed person who would review the situation. And eventually what it comes down to, if 3 times the legislature cannot come up with a plan that is acceptable to the voters, then the court will do it for the county. One of the things that probably is not on here is the legislature could have voted on this and not They could have adopted a plan, and then, because each type of plan is subject to permissive referendum, which means you don't have to put this on the ballot. But as part of this settlement, we suggested that you might as well go ahead and do it. The people are going to get out and have a petition anyway. Why, eliminate the prospect of having the people vote on it, because that's the way it should be done. So we could have put in a permissive referendum situation, but it was decided not to. All right, so what happened then is the General Government Committee was augmented by the minority and majority leader of the legislature, and there was certain timing that was involved because for a proposition to be on the ballot, it had to be adopted 60 days before the election. That's by state law. So there were a number of meetings of the General Government Committee. We were directed to prepare 3 different plans. One was 16, one was either 24 or 25, and then 30. And then we also were presented a plan by Legislator Frawley, which had 17. Now, there's certain guidelines that were given by the committee, and there are also some of them statutory. We were asked to keep the small towns intact as much as possible, divide as few towns as possible, follow ward election district boundaries, and keep the cities intact. That was the general charge we were given. There are certain requirements of the municipal home rule law, which is governing statute and the state laws, and what that indicates is what you do is you take the population of the county and divide it by the number of representatives you're looking at, in the case of 15 or 16 or 25 or 30. Then only those towns that have a population greater than, you come up with a number after dividing the 121,776. And that number, you can only divide a town that has a population that's 110% larger than that mean number. So under the 25 plan, the towns that could be divided were Richland, Hastings, Shrewsbury, Valney, Strava, Oswego, Town Oswego, and Granby, and of course the 2 cities. A couple other things that are in the law. You are to try to keep fair and effective representation of political parties. That's actually the last one on the list. And contiguous and compact form as far as possible. It is required that districts be contiguous and that you not have part of one district in one place and a part of another district way far away. So we took back to the General Government Committee the plans that I just mentioned, and they reviewed them. They regarded the 15 plan as too drastic. As you know, the population of this county is such that there are large geographical areas where there aren't an awful lot of people, especially in the northeast quadrant. In that, with the 15 plan, it looked that there would be only 2 legislators east of Route 81, and there are really 20,000 people, or 20% of the population is over there. And it reduced the city representatives down to 2 in Oswego and 1 in Fulton. And it was also very difficult to comply with some of the requirements of the municipal home rule law with respect to dividing of towns and filling up the numbers. The 30 plan was rejected really because I think that the General Government Committee believed that as long as we're getting into this process, going from 36 to 30 really wasn't going to make an awful lot of difference, and that they ought to do it so that you have a plan that people would understand is going to, at least if it is going to change something, it's going to change it and reduce costs. The Frawley plan was looked at. It had problems in that the districts weren't contiguous, and it had problems in that some were awful lot larger than others, which doesn't meet the requirements of the law. So then we got down to the 25 That map looked the best, and it was unanimously adopted by the General Government Committee and reported to the full legislature. There was a public hearing. The vote was 33-3. Now that's people, that's not weighted voting, but and it was placed on the ballot for this fall. What the General Government Committee did after the vote on that was instruct that we go out and go to every district that we could, and I think this is the last one of all of them. There has been a informational meeting in every area that's affected, and tell people what the plan is and ask for a comment so that they're able to understand it when it comes on the ballot. Basically what you have here is a thing that the Supreme Court of the United States has said how elections must be run. I think nowadays it's one person, one vote. That's how the courts now refer to it. They used to refer to it back in 1964, that the original decision is one man. But now it's one person. You have a mean district, which is the average size of 4,872 in people, 4,872 people. Maximum deviation in any of these districts is 4.5%, 5-6%. You can only go 4% up, 5% up, 5% down, in our judgment, in order to have a plan that would be acceptable to the court. The towns divided are indicated there. This has nothing to do with, and were mentioned before, this really has nothing to do with town, village, city, or ward boundaries. It has nothing to do with city elections, nothing to do with town elections. Parenthetically, it's nothing to do with the Oswego City Ward redistricting plan. It's entirely different. This would go on, this would come into effect on the 1st of January 1996, and it must be adjusted every 10 years. So it's not really every 10 years because there will be a federal census coming up soon after the year 2000, and as soon as that becomes, as soon as that is officially announced, adopted, or whatever you do with the census, then, and it's able to be acted upon, then this will have to be changed. And what happens in an instance like that, for example, next door, they're in to Onondaga County, they went through a redistricting at the end of, at the beginning of this decade, and changed the number of districts around. Some population shifts. There will be population shifts in this county. You know where the corridors of growth are. And 6-7 years from now, it'll be different. But what this does is establish a plan that we believe is fair, that's equitable. It does not leave too large a geographic area for any one legislator. The most one would have is 4 towns. The largest district is 4 towns. And obviously it's towns that are not heavily populated. That's the plan. If you'd like to ask questions about the plan itself, we'd be perfectly willing to answer it, but I think you've got copies of maps and so forth. So I guess I'd open the floor, and I don't know, Frank, if you want to moderate that, or whoever you want to ask.
I just wanted to make one point, a question that many people ask is, if I'm in a town that's divided, where do I go to vote? The answer is you go to the same place you've always gone to vote. As an example, I'll use the town of Scriba. Where I come from, the eastern portion of the Scriba and the southeastern portion is going to be tied in with the town of New Haven. New Haven remains intact because it didn't have enough people, but by taking 1,800 people from Scriba, it created what is known now as District 13. The remainder of Scriba is District 14. And the people in Scriba that are in that District 13 will still go to the Scriba Town Hall to vote. You don't go to New Haven to vote, you go to Scriba. And you will all do the same thing in any town that's divided like that. I wanted to make that clear because a lot of people ask that question, where do I vote? Is there anyone else has some questions they'd like to ask? Yes.
I would like to address the attorney. Would it have been possible in August, when this first proposal was put up, to have asked for an extension of time so that it wouldn't necessarily have had to go on this November's ballot? We could have done it in April, right?
Well, you're in a situation that you don't have total control over because you have a plaintiff. These particular plaintiffs had been in a lawsuit with the city of Oswego for how many years?
2 or 3.
2 or 3 years. And they had gone through the delaying process in that instance, and I think that their mindset was, we want you to get this. This is an issue. You understand that it's the law now, by case law. We want it done. And so we said, all right, we will go through the process. Give us a couple years to put the actual implementation of it into effect, but we'll go ahead and go with it, with the plan as it is now proposed.
But had you gone to the judge and said, could we have an extension of time to make possibly a better plan?
We think this is a good plan.
I know, but I mean, we have to differ in opinions.
Right.
To make it a better plan, give us a little more time. And the judge had said, yes, I will extend your time so that you can put a plan on the ballot.
If the question is, did we do it, the answer is no.
No, I was asking you, could you have?
Oh, yeah, I gather you can always try something, but our agreement was with the other side. They were anxious to get it done. The General Government Committee, when we met with them, they said, basically, I think the position was, let's get the process. Let's get the process started.
I just think it went too quick. I went to the meeting in August. I got 3 different maps here, and I can't see where any of them match. I've got the original proposal. And that map, and the one the county just sent out a couple days ago, I got. And another map that was handed to me by somebody. Our district, it really isn't split, but we're sucking in part of Hastings that I think is all wrong. Had they gone the other way, they wouldn't have disturbed that part of 33. I can't see where any of it matches and makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I appreciate your comments.
Yeah.
They're one of the few comments that have been made on the map itself and the plan itself.
Right.
Most of the comments have been about the process.
The particular problem with Formo, with a 25 plan, okay, is that you can't go into Mexico because you can't cut up Mexico. Okay, in other words,
New Haven.
okay, New Haven was
Yeah,
already going into Scribe. Okay, you can't cut up New Haven. It is.
Well, you can't cut that because it's too small a town.
In other words, you're forced to go, New Haven, because you can't cut it up, has to go into Scribe because you can't go down into Formo, you can't go into Mexico. You could have taken a piece of Maui. I mean, that was another option.
You can't cut us up either because we're too
Right.
small.
That's
Well, what
correct.
I'm saying to you, ma'am, is that the only options that we had were to go into Volney, or to go into Scruple, or go into Hastings. I mean, those were the 3 options for the town of Formo,
Okay.
with the 25.
I'm not a mapper, but could I ask you why? From Route 45, you veered off, I don't know how this came about, way down into here, into this Hastings area, when 45 at Billiard Road is Hastings. And to have gone right straight through, right to Route 11, would have given you the number of votes needed.
Right. I'm not exactly sure where you are, but I think one of the problems that the people had when they were drawing the maps were that you just can't take a look at one town and solve that problem because there's a pretty fair domino effect. Down in the bottom end of this county, the problems that we ran into were Constantia had to remain whole, West Monroe needed population. When you come down and combine these small towns up here, everything starts to gravitate towards the population centers. And where most of the problems were...
This fee stand went nowhere. It's still standing there, it's still part of Hastings, and it would have eliminated,
Is that up in this area, man? 4?
45.
Okay, I'm not exactly sure what 45 is.
Okay, District 8, in
District
the
8.
8th plan. Get straight up 45, and you hit the corner of Village Road, it's Hastings.
You're right, on 45, yeah.
Hastings, by taking the rest of 45, you would have got
In other
enough
words, you wanted
votes.
4 and 8. You wanted this section, you would prefer 4 and 8. is what you're
Well,
saying.
I wouldn't have gone, no, you wouldn't have had to do that. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not a good man,
I'm
but
sorry.
I
I guess I don't-
I can see that this would have been the better route
That's your
for
purpose,
Palermo to gain that 1,200 votes.
is to take this section up again.
Correct.
The problem that we ran into was to complete 4, we needed that section. And it's either that or go down deeper. I mean,
I looked at all of them, I can't see where that piece was touched.
which piece? No, this is,
It wasn't incorporated?
yeah,
This
this
piece
is
of
4.
Hastings.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be somewhere,
It's
yeah.
all there. We got the whole county here.
This part of Hastings was not incorporated into anything.
Oh, no, it has to be. It's either in 4, I'm not exactly sure where 45 comes, but it's either in District 4 with, what's that, Amboy and Parrish, or it's in, and I think that's where it is, or in 9. Every square inch of the county is in one district or another.
Possibly be in Amboy, Dan, it runs right down on Route 11 from 45.
The district is in Amboy. It's Amboy, is this Amboy? I'm sorry.
Well, none of your maps match.
Well, maybe I can sit down with you and we can go through the maps here.
For clarification purposes, would you please just explain to the people in Valley where this starts and where this ends, the dividing circle? There's been a lot of different ideas. I looked at the map here and it says Owens Road, but is it both sides of Owens Road? Is it east side? And also you've got a little section here that says Gilbert Road Ave. There's a little square up here, and I don't know if that's part of it and where that starts and where it ends. And
Well, there isn't, you don't have, you just give the map, right?
this one here, this one.
In the legislation that was passed, it also has a legal description. Okay, and those maps are sometimes a little misleading because you know how a county map, highway map is. You'll have a name and it might be to the left of the
Well, I think it's
where it is.
imperative that you let the people know where they're going to be voting and where the cutoff's going to be.
I think I have the legal description.
What district are you talking?
It's either,
10. Which district are you talking about? 10? 10 and 11? Okay.
Well, yeah, we're dividing Valley and Schuylkill.
Okay.
10 is like a little thing right in the middle here, this little triangle, and I don't understand what that is or what you're doing there.
Matches up with the cutout on District 11. District 10 matches up where it shows County Route 6. And it took part of where it says Gilbert and Emory Road, Maple Avenue.
Yeah, it's right here. Okay, District 10. The town of Alney, part. Begins at a point in the intersection of Great Bear Road and the Oswego River. Then northwesterly along the Oswego River to the city line of the city of Fulton. Then along the Fulton city line to its intersection with U.S. Interstate 481. Then easterly along the center line of U.S. Interstate 481 to Owen Road. Then along the center line of Owen Road easterly to County Route 6. Then north along the center line of County Route 6 to its intersection with State Route 3. Then east along the center line of State Route 3 to the town line. Then southerly and easterly along the town line to the Town Line Road. Then southerly along the center line of Town Line Road takes you right back down to Great Bear Road. Then southwesterly along the center line of Great Bear Road to the point of beginning. Center line definition is so that there's nobody's living in the center of the road, so one side is
One
and
side will be
the other.
Valley and one side will be Schuylkill. Is that what you're telling me?
Now, what I'm saying is that is the boundary of the district.
Right.
District 11 consists of all the rest of Valley.
Okay, but...
Okay, now I have a description for the town of Schuylkill, part of District 10, okay? It's kind of like a mirror of that, I would expect. That begins at the intersection of Great Bear Road with the Oswego River, same place. Then southerly along the Oswego River to the county line, continuing northerly along the river to 6 Mile Creek. That's northerly along 6 Mile Creek to the center line of County Route 54. That's easterly along the center line of County Route 54 to New York State Route 264. Then southerly along the center line of County Route 264 to its intersection with County Route 6. Then northwesterly along the center line of County Route 6 to Great Bear Road. Then southerly on Great Bear Road to the point of beginning. It's a little different than the descriptions on your houses, but it's the same theory.
Okay, so
There's a big map here too, if anybody wants to see it. I don't know if you can see it from way back there, but I'll gladly leave it on the table.
So basically, you will be splitting one side of the road for one town and one side
Yes.
of the road for the other. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what that description said.
Don't talk about towns, we have to talk about.
Well, that's what I mean as road
Yeah,
districts.
that's
I
what
know
I
you're
thought.
not splitting the town, I understand that, that's why we're here, but, okay, so this part of 10 that goes down here, is that all gonna be part of Schuylkill now? There's 10 in separate districts altogether. You've got 11, 12, and 10. So this says town of Schuylkill, this says town of
Yeah,
Iron.
12 is another part of the town's group.
There's a legislature for 10.
Is that a separate section?
That's one district. Right, so we get-
Someone else? I know you don't want to hear about the process. We're here to answer any questions we have. But several things I don't understand. It looks like some attention was paid to keep the district percentages of major political parties the same. Is that correct or not?
Supposed to.
Yeah, that's part of it. It would seem to me that if this is based on population, then you should have ignored that completely and been able to come up with something a little more regular here. I'm not going to say they look like salamanders up there, but some of those are pretty, there's this little wing coming up from Schuylkill. I know you're following the road, and I know you have problems there, but it would seem to me that some program in a computer, given the things you had to work with, would have come up with something a little more regular.
People don't live geometrically, unfortunately.
I understand that, and I know that you had a lot of constraints here.
Right, and that's, as Jan mentioned before, we try to, obviously, you've got to use major roads, try and not cut across election districts where possible, try and get people in the same areas where possible. But especially when you get into the, obviously, when you get into the population centers, that just breaks down because your populations start to be concentrated in developments and that sort of thing. And we had fits with the college because you have a real solid concentration of people in a very small area.
And they eligible for voting.
Yeah, they have to be counted.
And, you know, somebody's going about the what is it, Area 17 up in Oswego? That, I can understand where this guy's getting it right from, because it's twisted all over the place. The
Well,
other,
in Oswego, one of the things that when the committee told us to keep the cities as intact as possible, that immediately put you into a problem in the city of Oswego because the west side is a lot bigger than the east side, has a lot more population. And additionally, one of the problems that you have is that the smallest area that you can cut up is a census block, okay? And in 17 particularly, there's one census block that runs from Burt Point right up to the college. It's got about 12 people in it. I'm sorry. The area from the end of the census block to the college has about 12 people in it, but unfortunately, there's a couple of dorms in it as well, okay? So that you have to include all those people. I can't remember the exact number, but there's like 400 something people in this big elongated district, of which 390 of them are all in one little spot, okay? But you have to, one of the reasons 17 spreads out as big as it does is because of the way those census blocks are set up. So, yeah, you get this kind of stuff. The only reason it's square up there is that we're able to combine the whole towns and keep those towns together and still come under the deviations.
well, it looks to me like, you know, there may have been too many constraints when it came to not being able to split up some towns.
That's by law.
By law, that's what you run into.
One other, this has nothing to do with the map. I'm curious as to why we're getting paid political announcements on television to vote yes for this. It doesn't mention redistricting. In the proposal, they just act as if we're going to shoot 11 of the legislators and leave everything else the same. And I'm disturbed that the Republican committee or somebody and some Republicans in Oswego County are paying money to
support
to tell us, yeah, to support it. I know who the majority of the legislators are, I know what party they belong to, and I know that the first thing that the party does is to entrench itself into, so that it can be elected next time. And it would seem to me that, why don't we just go to the 2.5 years from now and let the legislator, the Albany do this, or a court or something? It seems to me that this is tainted by the gross majority of the Republicans in the town, or in the county, and the fact that they're paying money to somebody that vote yes on this is just, it taints it even more.
Obviously, the legislature has their own interest in dividing the county. What the Republican Party does, obviously, is their business. All I can say is that I think the committee decided, and I will give the legislature credit, that the committee decided not to spend the time and the money to go the full route with this thing. The exact lines and where they go, I think you can always argue that stuff, but I think one of the first things that you have to do, and one of the first things that the committee wrestled with, is how many legislators.
How many? Yeah.
And that's, I would say that when this first broke, that the vast majority of the legislature did not want to change anything. It's not in their interest to change anything. So 11 people will not be represented 2 years from now.
Was the plan for 10 districts, was that just too horrible to contemplate?
What the real problem, of course, you're balancing interests. People in the larger towns might, and I guess I'm going to get into some personal opinion, but people in the larger towns, from what I see, want bigger districts, area-wise, okay? Because then you keep more of your town intact. People in the smaller towns want more legislators because they feel, when I spoke in Orwell, okay, they were very concerned that they are no longer going to have a local legislator, in all probability, that will be living in the town of Orwell. The population center in District 1 is Sandy Creek. And politics being what it is, I would suspect that someone from Sandy Creek is going to get that seat. So, everybody's got a different opinion on this thing, depending on where you live, whose ox is being gored, and that sort of thing. So this is a compromise. There's no question about it.
One of the things that we were required to do and did do was make sure that the number of legislators that are Democrat and Republican remain the same percentages as is now, so that nobody got cut out because of their political affiliation. Wasn't that one of the things that you aimed at?
Yeah, but you try to estimate that, but of course, you're kind of, you roll dice with that. There's election this fall. You don't really know.
Well, no, but
that could change.
It could change, but that would be.
Once the decision was made to keep the cities intact, just by enrollment, regardless, because I don't know if you can use individuals, but just by enrollment, the majority of Democrats live in the two cities. Now, if you want to really cut this up and ensure as many Republican legislators as possible, there's a way to do that. You just go into a city like a pie, and then draw your districts out like that, all around the city, and so that your town people outnumber your city people, and chances are you'll get more Republicans in that.
I don't know who had their hand up first.
I just wanted to, you said the county attorney worked on this, and you, Mr. Fryer, represents the law firm. Could you tell us the law firm that is working on this?
It's Cock and Barkley.
Do you have a question?
Yes, I did. Maybe I just don't understand this. But why does the city, I'll use Fulton because I know their population figures, that they have like 13,000 people and they have 6 legislators? I mean, my plan would be cut the legislators out of the city.
Well, it now reduces it to 3.
Right, but I mean, I could do that without drawing all the lines on the map. Just leave it like it is. Take those people out.
Yeah, well,
I mean, how did it happen like that anyway? If we get one out in Boundley with 5,676 people and they have 6, that confuses me.
Well, what the law requires is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jan, is that each district be roughly the same population. Okay? Obviously, the wards in the city right now, you take a look at, or any of the cities, I can get into detail if you want. Those wards in the city are not population balanced right now. You know, I've got some wards that, you know, are 1,000 more than others. So what we had to do to comply with the law was to make all the districts within, 5% high and low, the same population. And when you do that, you get all this.
But if this split Fulton in half and gave them 2 legislators, they would be more or less equal to the Boundary, wouldn't they?
Against Fulton?
Yeah.
I mean, they
That
have
gives them-
roughly 13,000.
Yeah, but that would have been, so that's 6,500.
Well, it's
That's-
closer to 5,000 than
Well,
six
yeah,
for
but it's not within what the courts consider a good variable.
You gotta be closer to
Then why, but then, okay, so if you go along with what you just said, why did they get 6 for 13,000 and we get 1 for 5,000?
So they get 3.
Three different. Actually, they get 2.
I mean, now.
Why do we have them now?
Well, that's the old system. That goes back to,
Yeah, because when I set it up first, there was probably 3 guys in district board.
yeah, every ward had a
3 guys in Ward 2.
representative on the county board.
Yeah, this was historical.
That's historical, and then what they did in 1971 was say, okay, we're not gonna change the offices.
But there were
We're not-
6 wards in Fulton.
Yeah, right. So the ward that has 1,000 people gets 10 votes on a weighted voting, and the one that has 2,000 gets 20 votes on the weighted voting. That was the whole process.
But why did we have to do both of these? I mean, I'm for cutting the legislators. I think there's too many
We
in this
don't- we're
room
not
right
doing
here. But why do you have to do both?
We're not really doing both. All we're doing is one thing, very simple. Taking the county, 25 equal districts, one man, one person, one vote, that's it.
All these districts are...
That's by population.
All of us represent the same number of people now.
Approximately the same number of people with a variance of about 4 or 5% on the top to bottom. There's no district that's more than 10% larger or 5% larger than any other.
Yeah, but you are doing 2 things. You're trying to cut the legislators and hack up the town. So that's why everybody's...
Well, I guess it's 2 things. There really was, I guess if you took the old system of one legislator from the smallest town that you have, okay, and that's about 500 people.
Boston, 400.
Yeah. Is that Redfield or Boston? Most people Boston. If you gave everybody that kind of representation, I think the number was 240 legislators, and I don't think anybody wanted that. So what you had to do was try to work the population. As we indicated, there are certain patterns of growth in Oswego County. They're along the valley, they're up 81. The cities are, I guess, as most are, losing some population. You're having more bedroom communities. This is going to look a lot different 6 years from now, I would expect, because you'll have to readjust it to where the people are. And, that seems to be the fair way.
This plan will change by 1996.
What has to, not by 96, by the year 2000, by the next census. After the census, you're going to have to look at the population, see where it all is. I think this county has grown 20% in population over the last 20 years. So, it's gonna be different. But once you establish the principle of saying, all right, it's going to be equal districts, one person, every person has an equivalent vote. That's the concept.
That are not really permanent residents.
Believe me, people from Oswego County don't like it at all.
Well, really, with the bigger towns, they aren't being hacked up, they now have more than one representative.
That's correct.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is,
That's correct.
for Bonneville, you'll have 2 legislators.
So down here, you got 2 people to bitch at.
In some instances, 4. Only one instance, 4.
Up in the Redfield area, do you count those campers?
No.
Those summer people?
No, it's permanent population, it's residents. Yeah.
Permanent.
You don't count personal.
From a legal point of view, it seems to me that there wasn't anything inherently wrong with the weighted vote, even though there were 36. What was the reason that was considered not
All right,
to
I
be
guess-
with the one man, one vote?
I think one of the reasons is it was regarded as an expedient. There are 20 counties in the state out of the 62 that still have it, including Oswego right now. There are lawsuits in Jefferson County, there's a lawsuit in St. Lawrence County. Cattaraugus County redistricted on the basis, I'm not sure there was a suit there, but it's gradually coming. One of the issues is a lot of the work in the legislature is done by committees. You have somebody from a larger town sitting next to somebody with a smaller town, from a smaller town, and although there's weighted voting on when the legislature makes its vote there, you could have 5 or 6 people, control. You could have 2 people from a small town or 3 from smaller towns controlling a committee vote and getting something on the floor. That's part of the theory of it. But I think basically what the Supreme Court decided back in 1964 was that one person, one vote was going to be it. And they weren't going to allow any more of it. If you remember, you probably remember, I remember, there used to be a state senator from every county. There aren't anymore. The state senator that represents this county represents Jefferson, part of St. Lawrence. It used to be the senators, there was one senator from every county, and the assemblymen were done by population. I don't know if you remember it back. This was back in the 60s. And so the state of New York had to go through that. The Supreme Court says you can't do it that way. It's not like the U.S. Constitution. You cannot do it that way. So that's why the Senate changed and the Assembly changed, and it's I think a little difficult for people in this county to deal with, because you've really never had split type votes. You've always had one assemblyman. You've always had one senator to vote for. You've never had to look on somebody, your neighbor in the next town didn't have to vote for somebody else like that. Congressman, yeah. But they Hannibal, okay, well, the congressman, I think, that has picked up part of Hannibal. But, it's a rare thing here, and it's a different concept. But once you grow bigger, that's what happens.
In comparison to Onondaga County, we have 36 legislators, and Onondaga County has 24 legislators. They're doing a redistricting right now, they're considering it. Is that not true? And they're talking about cutting down to 18?
They have a charter commission. They have a charter commission that's, I think, in the process of hearings. The charter is going to deal with more than just that. But yeah, there's been talk of they're going to 15 too.
Okay. So if Onondaga County, who has twice the population that we do, why is not Legislator Sprowley's plan, his plan kept the towns intact? How come that was not acceptable?
Well, we looked at the plan, and there were areas where there was a difference of 25 and 30% between the size of the districts. That was one of the issues. The other issue was that he had some districts that weren't next to the other. I think it was wasn't it over in Minetto? Yes, I can't remember, but I think it had Hannibal and then something, but they were spotted. So, it didn't meet the criteria. Now, that's not to say that 17 wouldn't work, but 25 was what the General Government Committee looked at and said, this seems fairest, because, as I indicated, I think I may have not, we've done this a number of times, but maybe I didn't indicate it, but west of, or east of Route 81, I think it's about, if you calculate it, it's about 20% of the population. They're going to be served by 5, which is 20% of the legislature on a 25 plan. And there were other reasons. And if you get much lower than 25, then as I'm sure I said, the most anybody represents is 4 towns. You'd have to go to 5, 6, and so forth. That doesn't happen in Onondaga County because the population is so much larger.
Okay, but it seems to me that if they can reduce their legislators, there ought to be a way that 25 is not the magic number. That's just the number that you come up with to deal with the needs. Is that
This
correct?
is the number we felt was the fairest. The committee felt was the fairest.
Okay, but now,
After looking at large and small.
if this fails, and it goes back to the government committee, would the government committee consider a charter commission just as Onondaga County is doing right now? Would that be a consideration by the government committee?
Yes, it could be considered, sure.
And that way, and because you're going around and doing the hearings right now, and I really appreciate this, but it seems to me it's a little after the fact it's on the ballot. Maybe if you went around and did this before this went to the ballot, you could have got some of the citizen input that you're getting now, because that seems to be some of the concern, is that the towns are being divided. There may be a way of even cutting more. And the other concern that I've had when I've been out, people have asked me, by cutting the legislatures, does this mean that they're now going to have to hire assistants to help them take care of more of the population?
That might
And it-
happen if you went down to many fewer legislators.
Right.
They would become.
If you get down to 9 or 10, then you kind of eliminated the committee system.
Is there such a thing as a deputy legislator?
Could that be a possibility? That's going to
Well,
concern
then
me.
that's making government bigger again.
Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Then you're doing it, yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's the concern that you have by cutting the legislators, even with the 25, I've heard. That people are concerned that you're going to have to hire people to help, because they're going to have to obviously take care of more people.
I think that going down to 25, and I think I probably could speak for all of the 25 that are left, that they are going to avoid at all costs anything that's going to make them look as though they're costing more money. I don't think they're going to need to have help. If I were to be reelected, in fact, with the 25, I actually have a smaller area than I had before. I had 6,500 people, now I'm going to have within 5% of that 4,682. So some of us are going to have smaller numbers. Bill will have a smaller number of people, and the legislator from Schuylkill, any of those, 7 towns that were above
Any ones that were divided.
are going to have fewer people to watch out for and to take care of.
I don't know why anybody would need a deputy when they're all gonna be smaller than what the big towns had already.
That's right, I don't.
Good point.
We're not recommending anything except the 25 and everything else will remain the same as far as that type of thing.
At the risk of going far afield here, what Marie was talking about, a charter. Oswego County has no charter, do they?
Correct.
This is like a county constitution, and we don't have...
Well, Onondaga County has a county executive system, which is different. They have an executive department and a legislature. You don't have that here. It's an alternative form of government.
Has that ever been considered here with a charter and a...
I don't know.
Yeah, I remember back, there was a charter commission formed, George Williams was on it, it was back, gosh, it's got to be 15 years ago anyway. But that commission disbanded it and obviously didn't come out with a charter, didn't report a charter after. But I can't remember the exact date, but they had a charter commission. It
What
died.
happened to that charter?
It was never formed. Your question was, have they ever formed a commission? I thought. Is that what you asked?
Well, my question was, there is no charter, and that's been considered, I presume. I just...
Yeah.
There are different forms of county government. You know, this one obviously is one of several different kinds. There's a county manager kind, there's a county executive kind, and there are various. Generally speaking, county executive, counties that have county executives are pretty heavily populated. Yeah. Onondaga, Broome County, Albany County, Westchester.
I was wondering why the proposal only discusses the fact that we're reducing the number of legislators. It doesn't also talk about the fact that you're redistricting as well. Why doesn't it say that on the ballot?
It refers to the local law, which does contain all of that and the maps.
Will the local law be in the voting booth for people?
There will be an abstract. It's required by law that an abstract be in the...
I'll give you one right now.
Yeah. Is that the abstract? Which is not the law? No, not the local law. There's an abstract.
This is the local law.
Yeah, that's the local law. But the abstract is a description of it, which is required to be at the polling booths.
I've got a question. I've asked I'm the legislator from the town of Hastings, Jim McMahon, and I came to this meeting because I thought maybe Bruce Clark would be here because he had sent me some additional information. But I have a question, and let me start to phrase it because it kind of leads into some of this. Okay? On the ballot, the proposal says, proposal number 4, local law number 1, shall Oswego County local law number 1 of 1993, reducing the number of Oswego County legislators from 36 to 25 be approved. The legislature on August 26th voted on this resolution, and this is the title of it. Resolution adopting local law number 1 of 1993, entitled, in parenthesis, a local law to provide for the apportionment of the legislative body of the county of Oswego. According to Municipal Home Rule Law, Article 3, Section 25, there has to be an abstract sent down to the Board of Elections by the Clerk of the Legislature. And the Clerk of the Legislature is Margaret B. Lincoln. And Bruce did send me that information the 27th of October, and I had requested it at the last meeting. We talked about it in Oswego. It says, enclosed, please find copies of abstract, resolution, and proposed local law regarding to the redistricting plan. I have the abstract here. I have the local law, and the local laws, I just read you the local law heading. And I have the Oswego County Local Law Number 1, which is a local law to provide for the apportionment of the legislative body of the County of Oswego. Now, the abstract doesn't state, or any of those documents do not state what's on the ballot. And I'm just wondering what happened when it got to the Board of Elections of Oswego County, and how come it ended up different than what the legal documents that were sent down were stating. I would assume what was on those documents would have been verbatim on this.
Well, I can't answer that either. I haven't seen the abstract yet. I haven't bothered to look at it. I know the section you're quoting. I think the only response I can give to you at this point is that obviously what's on the ballot is, I don't believe is misleading. I think the fact that we're certainly not trying to slide this through. We've been to, as John mentioned, 30-some-odd meetings in the past month, and obviously there's been an awful lot of publicity on this. Your point of law, I can't speak to, Tim. I'm sorry, now Bruce is not here. I personally don't feel that the way the proposal is worded is misleading.
You open this county up for a lawsuit, why you don't say
finish
it's
this
going to be
first, okay?
reapportioned?
All the documents go to the heart of stating redistricting, okay? And municipal home rule law says, okay, you have to state three certain things, and I haven't got the law with me right here. But basically, one of those is to state the purpose, okay? I can see number one being proposition number one, but it also should state redistricting. I can see putting that the numbers would be 25 districts, but it doesn't state, we didn't vote on something that said reducing from 36 to 25. We voted on another issue, and I just wanted to raise that issue. And I would hope that Bruce would get back to me on it.
I'll mention it to Bruce.
A lot of people go to the polls and say, this looks like a good deal, let's do it.
Jack, I have to differ with you a little bit on, you don't think that is misleading, because it is very misleading. I've been going door to door in a campaign the last few months, and just about everybody I've talked to tells me that, well, the state's mandating that we have to lower the legislators from 36 to 25. That's what they believe this is all about. And as you well know, it's not what it's all about, although I do support the lowering of legislators in the county. I would think that you wouldn't want to risk a lawsuit or any other problems with this by doing that after what happened with the water district, because I think it was resoundingly defeated, mainly because the people had a lot of mistrust in what was going on.
Again, I guess, without getting to the legal point, I guess I just have to say that I personally don't see your point. I mean, certainly everyone... I'm sorry, Howard, I think that...
Well, what it says on the ballot is, do you want to lower the number of legislators from 36 to 25? That's all the people read. They're not going to read the abstract. They're not even going to read the local law. You know that, and depending on which side of the fence you're on, that's good or bad. But in any case, that's what they're reading, that's what they understand, and that's what they're going to be voting on.
Is that what's going to happen?
I think so, yeah, sure.
No,
The other thing...
is that the net result of what, that's the point, isn't it? We're going from 36 to 25.
I don't think that's the point. The redistricting, the lawsuit was not looking for that initially. It was looking for a redistricting, one man, one vote. But that's not really what the people are thinking is going on. The other thing that a lot of people are concerned...
I'm sorry, I'm not
I
following.
think you're shooting
They're
11
thinking that
legislators.
you're just lowering legislators, and that's all that this is about.
But we are rolling legislators, right?
Understood, but that's not what the lawsuit was, and that's not what the actual goal was of this whole thing to begin with. But that's what the perception is, because of the way it's
Here's what the plan is.
Okay, also, the other thing a lot of people are concerned about, and so am I, is the fact that all the literature coming out on this has been put out by Oswego County taxpayers' dollars, and I guess maybe Mr. Buck can tell me why promotion and tourism is paying for this. Why are we, that couldn't have been budgeted for, because the budget was done last year. But obviously, you're drawing money out of a budget that was earmarked for something else, is that correct?
No, the Promotion and Tourism Office also has to be the Public Information Office. There's no literature coming out of that office that has tells anybody to vote one way or another.
Well, that's what Mr. Clark told us 2 nights ago. He said that the money and everything was coming out of pollution.
That's correct. It's also, we also have the public information office. That's where public information
So these
comes out.
brochures are coming out of that office.
Only the information that says.
Listen, you know, I guess I have a problem, Howard, because you're telling me on one hand, I'm trying to sneak this through, and on the other hand, I'm spending too much money trying to tell everybody what's in it.
Well, what that does, that's a very positive, piece of propaganda to get you to vote, but also to get you to vote the way the legislator would like you to vote, which is yes. I mean, it's very positive in that manner.
If you like Mr. McMahon, and what he says, you'll vote with Mr. McMahon. If you like what Mr.
People
Buck
are not
says,
hearing Mr. McMahon as much as they're hearing you. You have the resources to tell people and manipulate them the way you want them to think and vote. Now, also, the Republican Party in the county is spending an awful lot of money to promote this yes vote as well. And again, whose interests are they serving, the Republican parties or the people of the county? Those are the things that people are questioning here.
Look at the billboard up there on
Well, at least,
264 and 3, and they...
All we're here to do is look at a map, tell you what the plan is.
I'm sure you believe in the plan, and it may be the best
I
plan.
do.
I'm not
I do.
discrediting that. But what I'm
Taking your
saying...
right self right into the next step.
Okay, but if you believe it has the merit that it does, it would seem like you'd let it rest on its own merit, but it seems to be...
Wasn't he just...
Well, I don't know. When you word it the way you do, I wouldn't say you're resting on its merit. You're resting on something in it that will sell it better than anything else, which is lowering the legislators in the county. And I think it'll probably work, but...
If you lower the number of legislators, you have to reduce it.
Why?
Yeah, but everybody
Because
doesn't
the
understand
populations have
that.
to be
Well, what about Fulton? That's my question with Fulton, why there's 13,000 and 6 legislators, and out in
That
Bounty,
was
we have 5,000.
six legislatures was under the weighted vote system, where this is after, this is...
But you don't
different
have
setup.
to, you're saying you have to redistrict if you lower the legislators, and I don't think you have to.
Well, if they all represent the same number of people, you have to reduce the size.
Well, how does Mr. Buck, who represents us at 5,500 and whatever it is, represent the same number of people that the 6 do in Fulton? I don't understand that.
Well, that's why we don't know, and that's what we're trying to...
No, I don't mean now, I don't mean this, I mean before. There's 6 of them down there for 13,000 people,
Oh,
it
that was a
doesn't weigh
tradition.
out.
Right, that was a tradition, the way, you know, I don't know how many, probably 100 years. But whenever they formed the county legislature, they formed, as I mentioned when we started, a board of supervisors, where a supervisor from the town of Alny also sat on the county legislature, and one individual from each of the wards in the city. They didn't care about population. However they formed those wards way back when, they remained intact for right up to 1971, from whatever, I don't know what date the city of Fulton was established, but they never had changed. This will be the first time that, as far as the legislature is concerned, that those districts will be changed. That came through history, okay? And that's why, you know, we're getting these kinds of lawsuits, because they're saying, why should, just as you said, the plaintiffs are saying, why should one guy represent 5,000 people and another guy represent 400, which is what we've got, and still get the same pension, you know, still, you know, act on the legislature. And weighted voting is not enough to dissuade them from...
So why do you have to draw all the maps and do all this stuff instead of just taking the legislators out of Fulton? Why?
Well, because you have to...
Why can't you do that?
Well, because you have to have the districts roughly the same size, population. You have, by law, you have to have them roughly the same size.
See, you keep saying that to me, but I still see it, that it wasn't the same.
Yes, it
If
is.
there's 6 of them in
It's going
Fulton,
to be.
yeah, but you're
It's gonna be
saying
better
we
now.
have to, why do we have to now?
Because there's a lawsuit, back in the 60s and 70s, a number of counties did this voluntarily. That was the first flurry, and then a number haven't. The recent decisions that come out, now you have, as I indicated earlier, I guess Jefferson County is in the middle of a lawsuit. St. Lawrence County has gone through one plan which has failed. They're trying to go through another plan. They're not sure where they stand because they're not, the last time I talked to St. Lawrence County attorney was in the spring. At that point, they weren't sure who was going to run where. So we think it's a good plan. It's based on equal population, very simple concept, and equal population in accordance and conformance with the law. That's.
Anyone else have any
To
questions?
finish my comment, if I could, the other thing is Onondaga County has 5 times our population. They have 24 legislators, which is fewer than what we're going to end up with if this passes. They have no assistants, it's a part-time job, and the salary range is pretty much the same as ours here. Why is it we can't do the same? They represent 5 times the number of people that our legislators represent. Right.
Well, I thought Jan addressed that question. The whole issue of how the district lines are drawn, okay, are dependent on population densities.
They went from 38 to 24 in the 60s when they had a county executive and a county charter. That all happened at the same time. And population changes. What's happened there is I think what I'm indicating might very well happen here. The city districts are now going out into the towns because their population loss is in the city from 1960, and the population gain is in the suburban communities. So that's all adjusted. The last time they went around, I live in a town where we always had just one legislator. Now the legislator from my town represents 2 districts in the town of Manlius, which is next door. So that's...
We did look at 24, Howard, and
So I can't
24,
remember.
yeah, 24, there was
we
a
looked at
problem
it,
with
and
24.
we had problems up here. And I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly which district it was, but we had some problems up at the north end, trying to keep the towns together and still need the deviation. 25.
There are only a couple towns in Onondaga County where the population is really low. I mean, even the ones that you can, I guess you'd say are rural, belongs to your Skaneateles Lake. The town of Spafford, I think, is the one that's the lowest, but that's been combined with Skaneateles and so forth. They're around the lake, there's an identity, and they don't have, I mean, you got some pretty big towns here with not too many people in them. That was part of it.
Beverly Wheeler, who's a legislator from Albion, has said that people up there are unhappy with us because they are losing their legislator for their town, and they feel that they should have one for their town. And in one case up there where there's 3 or 4 towns combined with only one legislator, if you reduce it even more, you'll have many more such areas of several towns that will only have one legislator. And they don't like that. People like to have their legislator for their town.
St. Lawrence County has a situation a little more similar. They have a town up there called Town Clare, 121 people in it. I think it has the world's smallest highway garage. So, you have to deal with their population is, After 2000, this will change because you all know where the growth is.
In the year 2000, is this going to go back through this process, or will this actually be through formula and just be done in that manner?
What I would contemplate would happen is the plan would be redrawn if 25 still sounds like the right number, and taking the legislature probably at that time, if then it won't be a new thing. People are going to be a little more experienced with it. The legislature could decide that just a permissive referendum, if enough people can get a petition, then they'll put it on the ballot, but they don't necessarily have to, because essentially it's an adjustment type of thing.
So in 2000, if there's enough population growth in Oswego County, they could conceivably decide to drop from 25 down to 18 or something, if it wouldn't make so many crazy cuts in some of the areas.
Yeah. Looked at it again completely.
You look at it again, but look, and I guess it's Onondaga County now is, let's see, 1960, 70, 80. They've had the same number, and they will have the same number through the 90s. The Charter Commission that they're looking at, I don't think is going to take any action before the year 2000. I don't think they are.
You brought up a point, okay, and the next time we do this over again, it may be just a readjustment. So, in theory, these districts could be the core, and they would be expanded and shrunk according to the law and according to where the population moves. And the next time, we would not be going through this whole process. Of what we've done now.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think so. You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
Do the voting again, if this should pass, and in the future when there's, like, for instance, I'll talk about Volney since we're in Volney, and the one section of Volney is our voting district 3. So only part of District 3 would be removed, but you say they vote at their same polling places. Now, you would have, how would you set up a voting machine and determine, all right, this person lives in the part that's been cut off to Scruple? I mean, you'd have a voting machine with two legislators' names in it, and how, I mean, how would that work? Because District 3 would actually have the Valney legislator and the Scruple legislator.
I'm not sure what District 3 is.
Well, I don't even know if you have to really know it, but it's this bill.
The election district.
Yeah, yeah. And it's divided.
Two machines would be the one answer if that's
So there would
correct.
have to be extra,
And so, I think we kind of mentioned in some cases, well, in some instances, there will be that.
in
But,
District 3 in our district, there would be, because it's Valney and, it would be Valney and Scruple, and
yeah, you
I
know
just
that better
don't-
than I.
Yeah, so I mean, I wondered how you would set that up so that people would vote in the right booth for the right legislator.
Well,
You know, it
also,
seems-
couldn't it be done the way they do when they are voting in the primaries? Because the conservatives and the Republicans both have a primary in a town. When you go in the booth, they set the back of the machine by if you're conservative or Republican, so it's locked out. You only can vote for the correct one that applies to you. Couldn't they do that with the voting for the correct legislator?
If they were both Republicans or both Democrats, they'd be both on the same line on how would you lock something like that out?
Well, I don't know, the machines now are,
Has to be solved.
yeah.
Either you're gonna have to
That's
reform
what,
the
you
district
really have
or
2 years to figure that out,
come up with
essentially.
another solution.
But isn't that a consideration for the town if they have to buy another voting machine? The town would have to buy the voting machine. That would be an added expense on the town, not the county, right?
That's right, once they change the law.
Yes. Well, I think it was just explained that any voting machine can be set up so that it depends on where, what area you are from, district, voting district or legislative voting district, and you can set the voting machine up so it locks out one legislative district and allows you to vote in the one that you are in.
That is not how it
That's not
works.
how-
That's
yeah.
according to party, not according to district.
The machine can be set up that way.
Not if you have two Republicans or two Democrats on, you know, one.
No, you're not doing it.
I got a question that might
It
clarify
has nothing
that.
to do with party.
District 4 and 6, okay, up there, 4 and 6. Okay, West Monroe 6, that one corner is Hastings, 4 is Hastings. Roughly, that whole top part is all of Hastings. The town board might have to go back in and have 2 districts up there called, where number 4 is District 1, and right on the other side, District 2, put in a new machine, and then that eliminates, that's one other way other than having 2 on the machine. And there might be some others, there's others in Hastings, but that's one that's real clear.
Then they'd be coming back to the county to buy all machines again, like they did, was that a year ago? 2 years ago?
We got all of ours in Oswego when they gave them away, so we were lucky.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know that answer.
But that's one possibility that might work.
Yeah, reform this.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
But they're 2, you know, as I said, they're 2 years to figure out those kind of things. And, you know, they have to be figured out.
So the question, thank you very much for coming. Nice to speak at the large group. Run sometimes, and we didn't have to.
Oh, I haven't seen you. I haven't seen you.